Shirley Sanders.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the Stratus Time training for managers for Beacon Specialized Living Services. This session will last for approximately 60 minutes, during which there will be times in which you can get your questions answered. During the question and answer portions of our session, I will prompt you that if you have a question, to ask it. During the training portions of our session, I will be putting participants on mute. The agenda for today's session will be as follows. We're going to start with a brief navigational review. This is where we take a high-level overview of the application. After that, we'll take a look at things from an employee perspective as we talk about how employees will record their time by web punching. We'll also talk about how employees can submit time off requests and more. After that, we'll take a look at things from a manager perspective as we discuss daily processes and best practices. We'll talk about how you as managers can perform functions such as editing and approving time cards, processing time off requests, and more. After that, we'll get into reports, resources, and then we'll take your final questions. So with that, let me just make sure I've got an accounting of all of the folks that are in here. Alrighty. And then that will get into the application. When you first log into Stratus Time, this is the page that you will see. It is known as the Manager Dashboard, and it is here that you'll be spending the majority of your time. To begin our navigational review, we're going to start with the user menu. The user menu can be found in the upper right-hand area of the screen. When you log in, you will see your name here, and when your employees log in, they will see their name in this area. As far as the options that your organization will have, employees that log in will have access to the employee dashboard, as will you as managers. The page we're currently viewing is the manager dashboard. Only managers and administrators will have access to that. I think you'll have access to be able to change your password. And of course, everyone will have the ability to log out. Now, to continue our navigational review, we're going to go to the employee dashboard. You can access the employee dashboard under the user menu and the icon that looks like a single person. The employee dashboard, you can think of it as a self-service area for your employees. It is here that employees can record their time by web punching. They can also web punch using actions. They can view their schedules. They can view their time off balances and submit time off requests. They can view messages and send messages. They can view and approve their time card and run reports. We're going to take a closer look at this page when we get into the topic of employee functionality. But for now, we're going to go back and take a little bit closer look at the manager dashboard. And again, you can access the manager dashboard under the user menu and the icon that looks like multiple people. So under the manager dashboard, you'll notice that there are some tabs. And the tab we're looking at right now is the Home tab. And under the Home tab are two areas. This area is called the Large widget on the left, and on the right, the Small widget. Currently, right now, under the Large widget, we're looking at the status board, and the status board uses push pin functionality to allow you to be able to tell whether or not employees are out, in, at meal, on break, also absent, and when their last transaction has occurred, and any applicable notes. On the right is the summary, and it is here that you'll be able to see totals for things like scheduled hours, actual hours, overtime hours, and missing punches for the current week as well as the previous week. As far as the employees you will have access to, in most cases you'll find that managers have access only to their own direct reports. Alrighty. In addition to the Home tab, there is the Employees tab, and it is here that you can view employee profiles. To view an employee's profile, you would click on their name, and then to the right, it will show you their profile. Now, depending on the type of access that you are granted, you may see more or slightly less information than I'm currently showing here. Next are time cards. It is here that you can have access to employee time cards. To view an employee's time card, you would click on their name, and then to the right, it will show you their time card. Under time cards, you'll notice that there are some sub-tabs. Under pay adjustment, it is here that you'll be able to view pay adjustments that have been added. It's a view-only view, by the way. Time card approvals. You will not have access to comp time or points. Next are schedules, and it is here that you will have access to schedules. And we'll take a closer look at this when we get into daily processes and best practices. You'll also have access to time off requests and reports. Well, that will conclude the first topic of our training today, having to do with the navigational review. We will now transition to our next topic, which is employee functionality. For this portion of training, we're going to go to the employee dashboard. And again, you can access the employee dashboard under the user menu and employee dashboard. A little sluggish here. Apologize for the delay. Oh, sorry about that. There we go. So now we're looking at the employee dashboard. Working from the top down, we have the quick action icons for the employee dashboard. Now because, and by the way, again, we're logged in as Randy Irwin, and because this is Randy's first time punching in for the day, logically that first punch should be a clock in punch. To punch in, Randy would click on the clock in icon, and then what happens is he's going to get a message that lets him know when his punch is saved. Oh, sorry about that. But anyway, this is where the message will let them know that their punch has been saved. Now, if there are those here who will have employees that need to transfer into different labor levels or org units, what they'll do is click on transfer, and it is here that an employee could choose a different department. Let's try that again. Again, I apologize. Here we go. So they could choose a different department by clicking in the field, and then clearing out what's in the field, click in the field again, and then choose the appropriate labor level or org unit. And then they would click on Save. And of course, you'll have on your site icons for begin meal and end meal, in addition to the ones that you're seeing here now. Under Actions, employees can also web punch. They would do so in the exact same way. Now, to close out of these different windows that I'm opening up, employees can either click on this left pointing arrow or simply click outside of the page. Next are schedules. It is here that employees can view their schedules. They can move from one pay period to the next using these arrows, and 1 week to the next. Now, what this means is that they can move out, let's say, several weeks, but let's say they want to snap back to the current pay period or the current week. Well, they can do so by clicking on current pay period or current week. In the lower right-hand area, it will show the total scheduled hours. After that is time off, and it is here that employees can submit time off requests. The time off type that your organization will be using is personal time off. Now, for my sample site, the primary time off type is vacation. And what this means is that Randy can see what his vacation balance is at a glance. Now, to see more detailed information, he would click on time off. And it is here that he can see his personal time off balance. There's an icon in the upper right-hand area called View Calendar. If the employee clicks on it, it will bring up a calendar, and on this calendar they will see names. The names of employees with approved time off and the dates that approved time off falls on. Using this blue arrow to go back to our time off requesting page, to submit a time off request, the employee would click on this suitcase icon for request time off. Working from the top down, they would choose the appropriate time off type. In your employee's case, they'll only have one, personal time off. They would choose the date range. So let's say that Randy would like to take this coming Friday off as vacation. He could choose Friday's date. You'll notice that when he chooses Friday's date, it automatically assumes that the ending date should be the same. However, if this was a multi-day request, he could choose a different day. In the start time field is where he would enter the time of day on Friday. He would like to start his vacation. And in hours per day, he's going to enter the number of hours on Friday that he would like to request off. He's going to leave it at these defaults that he's got here. Now, there's some other options that are available, such as include weekends. If an employee's normal work week encompasses one or both weekend days, and they would like one or both of those weekend days to be a part of their request, first they would choose a date range that encompassed one or both weekend days, and then they would put a check mark to include weekends. Now, because the date in question is this coming Friday, it would not be appropriate to include weekends. There's also a place for entering brief notes. And then to submit the request, the employee would click on Submit. When they do, you'll notice that the request status section now is updated. Amongst the information that the employee will see, they'll see at least the first date that is being requested off, the time off type, the total number of hours in the request, the request status. Right now, the status is requested, meaning it has been successfully submitted and is now pending manager review. If this request had been processed by a manager, it would let the employee know what manager processed it. The employee could then review the notes that they added to the request. Manager notes would be visible here. They could put their pointer over an icon that looks like this, and it'll show them what those manager notes are. So let's say there's a scenario where the request was denied. A manager might put notes in mentioning the reason why. And there's a delete icon. So right now it shows as requested. However, if it was approved, it would show as approved. Denied, it would show as denied. Now let's say that for whatever reason, Randy's plans for the long weekend have fallen through. So then instead of taking this Friday off, they now plan to come into work. If Randy were to click on this delete icon while the status is requested, because this request has not been processed by anyone yet, this request would then be removed from his view as well as the manager's view. But what if the request has already been approved? Well, clicking on this icon for an already approved request will change its status from approved to cancellation request. And a cancellation request will be sent to the manager. Upon approval of that cancellation request, it will then show as canceled. Now, as far as how to process time off requests, we'll take a closer look at that when we get into daily processes and best practices. Next are messages, and it is here that employees can see an inbox of messages that have been sent by managers and administrators. To view the message, they would click on it in the inbox, and then to the right it will show the headers as well as the body of the message. From here, employees can reply, mark as unread, and delete. They also have the power to create a new message. Now, usually this new message will go just to their direct manager, but it's here that they can enter the subject of the message. Here's where they can enter the body of the message and then click on send. Next is the time card, and it is here that employees can view and approve their time card. They can move from one pay period to the next, 1 week to the next. In the lower right-hand area on the yellow Post-it note, it will show their total hours. And to approve their time cards, employees will put check marks in these approval check boxes and click on Save. When they do so, they will get a message letting them know that their approval has been saved. A common question that comes up here is, okay, I can see how my employees will approve their time cards. How will managers approve time cards? Well, we'll talk more about that when we get into daily processes and best practices. The thing to keep in mind is that when we're under this page, we're looking at things strictly from an employee standpoint. Finally, there are reports. Reports allows employees limited ability to run reports. The reports that your organization your employees will have access to is the time card report and the schedules report. To run the time card report, the employee would click on the link under reports, and it's here that they could choose a date range, and there's options for the current pay period, previous pay period. There's even a user-defined period. Under report setting is where they can choose their output format, and there's options for Adobe PDF, Microsoft Excel, TIFF/PNG. For training purposes, Randy's going to choose PNG. When he clicks on Run, he's going to get a message that's letting him know that his report is being generated. Now, when the report is finished, this is what the link to be able to open it will look like. When the employee clicks on it, they'll be able to see the output of their report. And because it's in the PDF format, just like any other PDF document, they could print it out, or they could save it as a PDF document. Now, to remove the report, let's say they no longer need it, They can click on this red X. They will get final confirmation, essentially asking, are you sure you want to delete this report? Click on yes, and the report is removed. That will conclude the first two topics of our session today, having to do with the navigational review and employee functionality. Very shortly, I'll be taking the mute off the line to take your questions on these topics. But before I do, I would ask that if you don't think that you'll have questions for this portion of training, that you mute your line so as not to disturb those that do have questions. So at this time, I'll be taking the mute off the line to take your questions on the navigational review and employee functionality.
Hey guys, this is Roman. Do any of you have any questions about what you've seen so far?
Not yet. No question.
All right. Well, if anybody thinks of questions having to do with topics that have already been considered, there's going to be one more opportunity to get your questions answered. So with that, we'll get into the balance of our topics having to do with daily processes and best practices, reports, resources, and then we'll take your final questions. So with that, we'll get back into the application. And for this portion of training, we're going to switch to the Manager Dashboard. And again, you can access the Manager Dashboard under the User menu and the icon that looks like multiple people. To begin our tour of the Manager Dashboard, we'll take a closer look at the Quick Action icons for the Manager Dashboard. Working from the left, the first icon you will see looks like a stop sign, and it indicates missing punches. If I click on it, it brings up a page and lets me know that I have a missing punch on Abby Bell's time card. If I were to click on this pencil icon, it would take me to her time card where I could fill in that missing punch. Now you'll notice that there's a number 1 above the stop sign, again indicating that there is one missing punch on my employee's time cards. Next is the exceptions icon. This tracks things that fall outside of what is expected for things like tardy in punches or early out punches. Next are alerts. So whereas exceptions tracks, alerts, prioritizes, and informs. As far as how your organization will be using exceptions and alerts, you will want to consult with your administrator. Next are time off requests. And it's letting me know that there are 2 time off requests that are ready to be processed. And then finally, there's my messages inbox. If I were to click on this, it would take me to an inbox of messages that have been sent by administrators, other managers, and my direct employees. Below that, we have our home tab, and previously we talked about the status board and the summary page. However, I'd like to take a moment to talk about these 2 icons. This first icon is a gear icon, and whenever you see a gear icon, it's going to be your way of knowing that options are available. In this case, you can determine what features you'd like to see on the status board by moving them from the unselected list to the selected list. You can prioritize what's already in your selected list by clicking on one of the items and then using these up and down arrows. After that is the filter icon. This allows you to filter your employees. Now, there may be filters that have been set up for you by your administrator, and they would be listed here. But you do have the ability to clear one if you choose it, create a new one, or create a new custom filter. So these features can be used to filter your employees by employee group if you have access to multiple employee groups. We find that typically managers only have access to their own direct reports. They can also be used to filter by labor levels or org units for things like departments. However, if you have a long list of employees and you'd like to simply bring one of those employees forward, you could click on you could enter their name here and click on Apply, and it would bring that employee's name forward. Now, in addition to the status board, you will also have access to missing punches and exceptions, as well as the summary widget. The summary widget goes day by day and shows you totals for things like scheduled hours, actual hours, overtime hours, and missing punches. And in the lower area, it will show totals for the entire week. On the small widget, in addition to the summary, there is also a transaction log. The transaction log will show you a running list of punches as they are done by employees that are web punching. It gives you a legend down here to show you what type. So what we're looking at right now is Abby Bell. This is the date and time that she punched, and the punch type is a transfer. So that's the Home tab. Next is Employees, and as was previously mentioned, to view an employee's profile, you would click on their name, and then to the right, it will show you their profile. Next are time cards. And we'll take a closer look at time cards in just a little bit. But again, just as a reminder, to view an employee's time card, you would click on their name. And then to the right, it will show you their time card. And there are arrows that allow you to move from one pay period to the next and 1 week to the next. However, you also have the option of choosing a user-defined period. You can click here to choose a start date, here to choose an end date, and then click on Done. You will have view-only privileges for pay adjustments. Next are schedules. The view that you will have is for the visual scheduler, and that's what you're looking at right now. So the visual scheduler will show you the schedules for the current day and the next day. But as you can see, you'll have arrows where you can move between days. Now, for each schedule that you are viewing, you can not only view it, but you can also make edits to it. So let's say that for Friday, we need Ariana to come in at 9 a.m. instead of her normal 10 a.m. time. Well, we can click and drag and make that edit as needed. If you need to add schedules or create schedules, you can click and drag to do so. And then edit them as needed. Next is time off. And it is here that you can view and process time off requests. Under balances, you'll be able to see time off balances for your employees. You would click on the employee's name, and then to the right, it will show you their time off balances. And again, remember, for your organization, you'll just be using personal time off. Back to the Request tab. Working from the top down, you can filter the request by status. Right now, we are only viewing requests that are under requested status, but as you can see, other filtering options are available. You can click on this filter icon to filter for things like labor level or org units, or employee groups, if you have access to multiple employee groups. Now, for each request, it's going to show you the name of the employee that made the request, the date the date and time the request was submitted, the time off type, at least the first date that is being requested off, the total number of hours in the request, the available balance of hours that the employee has prior to processing, and the ability to approve or deny the entire request. This is a single-day request. However, for Noah Coleman, we have a multi-day request. Whenever that is the case, you can click on this magnifying glass icon, and what comes up is something where it breaks out. There's a page where it breaks out that multi-day request into individual days. In this view, you could then selectively approve or deny the individual days of the request. Now, with Abby's request, we don't have a lot of time between the date the request was submitted and the date that is being requested off. In such a case, you may have some concern about whether or not you'll have proper staffing. If that is a concern, what you can do is click on this request, and then to the right you'll see the calendar. And on this calendar, you will see names. The names of employees with approved time off, and the dates that that approved time off falls on. Now, if the current date and the date being requested off fall in the same month, the current date will be shaded in blue, as you can see here, and the date being requested off will be shaded in gray. Now, on the 21st here, as you can see, no employee names are showing, indicating any other employees with approved time off. So I'm going to go ahead and approve this for Abby. And when this section refreshes, as you can see, now the calendar reflects that Abby Bell has approved time off for the 21st. Also, this time has been posted to her time card. So with that, let's circle back to time cards and talk about editing and approving time cards. But before we do, let's start with a bit of an overview of time cards. Working from the top down, it's going to show you the days of the week. And for each day, it's going to show you in and out times, and the resulting regular time, overtime, and unpaid time. I don't think you guys are using that. In the lower right-hand area, it's going to show you totals for things like regular work, overtime, and personal time off. Now, for each day, you're going to see a series of icons. The first looks like a checkbox. This is the manager approval checkbox. We'll take a closer look at this in just a little bit. After that, an icon that looks like a faint piece of paper. This is the manager and employee note icon. If an employee has entered notes while, from their web punching, it would show that note here. But you as a manager can also add a note by clicking. And it's here that you could add the note and then click on Save. Next is the timesheet audit trail icon. It looks like a magnifying glass. Whenever you see this icon, it's going to be your way of knowing that information has been modified or changed on an employee's time card. If you were to click on this icon, it would show you a history of the changes that have been made and who has made those changes. After that, we have an icon that looks like a pencil. What this icon allows you to do is to make edits to information that's on this date and on this line. So if I were to click on it, it's here that I could change the out time. I could change the in time. I could change the punch types. I could change the dates on these punches. I could click here and add more notes. I could specify labor level or org unit information, such as what division, what branch, what department should these punches fall under. Under modifiers, if you have access to them, you could use them. Under additional options, if you have access to those, you could use those. And after all of your edits had been made, to finalize them, you would click on Save. So again, the pencil icon allows you to make edits. Next is the delete record icon. It looks like a red X. When you click on it, it's here that you could delete just the clock in, just the clock out, or both. Now, bear in mind that employees will be expected to punch for lunch, but I just decided to kind of keep things simple. So there would be a begin meal and end meal for each day. So that is the overview. Now let's talk about options for adding time. And for this portion of training, we're going to switch to Abby Bell's time card. Now you'll notice that there are employee IDs here. So from our previous training, it has been surmised that you're going to have some, I'll call them non-employees. Their employee ID is always going to have a J before it, just so that you can know whether or not they're employees Beacon or not. So just wanted to let you know that. Now, when we take a look at Abby Bell, you'll notice that there's a stop sign next to her name, and again, this is indicating a missing punch. So when I click on her name and I bring up her time card, it lets us know that she's missing a punch on Monday, a clock out. So how do we fill in this clock out? That's the first thing we want to talk about when it comes to adding time. Because this is going to be what you're going to be doing the most when it comes to editing time cards. The easiest way to do so is to click on this red area once, enter the time of the punch. We'll say 3:30 p.m. and click on Save. As this section refreshes, as you can see, the 3:30 p.m. time has been saved, resulting in 7 hours and 30 minutes of regular time, and the totals in the lower right-hand area have been updated. So that's going to be probably the primary way you're going to fill in missing punches. But additional options for adding time can be found under Add Shift, as well as the Mass Transaction Editor. Now under Add Shift, there's Add Punch, and it would essentially do the same thing as we just did. But I'm thinking that probably the best practice for you folks is going to be just to look for those red areas and fill in that missing punch by clicking on those red areas and entering the time of the punch. However, if for any reason, let's say you need to add a manual department transfer, under Type, you could choose Transfer. You could enter the date, enter the time, and then you could specify your labor level or org unit information by clicking in these fields, and then clicking on Save. So again, Add Punch allows you to add a single punch. Add Work Shift allows you to add an in punch and an out punch. So let's say that Abby Bell's done some off-site work on Wednesday, and we'd like her time card to reflect those off-site work hours. We can choose Add Shift and then Add Work Shift. And by the way, whenever you see a green plus sign anywhere in the application, it's going to be your way of knowing that you can add something. In this case, we're going to be adding a work shift. Now, when we choose Add Work Shift, we're adding an in punch and an out punch, so you can see we've got 2 columns of information to fill in. Now, just to let you know, these could also be used for adding a meal. On this side, you could choose Begin Meal. You'll notice it automatically assumes you want to enter End Meal on the other side. Now, for training purposes, we're going to work with Clock In and Clock Out. And as we said, this is for Wednesday's date, so I'll choose that. You'll notice that when I choose it on one side, it automatically assumes that that should be the date on the other side. And let's say that Abby worked from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. Now, as far as notes are concerned, we're going to note that this is for off-site work. And just to let you know, there's also this icon which looks like a pad of paper with a green plus sign. When you click on that, you've got shorthand notes. So if you wanted to, you could use one, and it would fill in the manager notes field. Now, just to let you know that the options that you see here are something that can be updated by your administrator. So if there's something in this list that you would like to see and use quite a bit, make sure to have a conversation with your administrator to get it added. This field allows you to duplicate these entries for additional days. So if I were to enter the number 2 here and click on Save, not only would a 9 a.m. punch and a 4 p.m. punch be entered for Wednesday, but a 9 a.m. punch and a 4 p.m. punch would also be entered for Thursday and Friday. And once again, you could specify labor level or org unit information, such as what division, what branch, what department this 9 a.m. punch and 4 p.m. punch would fall under. We're going to dispense with that feature this time and click on Save. As the section refreshes, as you can see on Wednesday, we now have a 9 a.m. punch and a 4 p.m. punch, resulting in 7 hours of regular time. The totals in the lower right-hand area have been updated as well. So once again, Add Work Shift allows you to add an in punch and an out punch. However, what if you need to add time that is not punched for things like personal time? So previously we saw where you could add personal time, or should say a person could put in a request for personal time. But let's say that for whatever reason you have to add it manually. Well, Add Non-Work Shift would allow you to do that. Working from the top down, you would choose the appropriate pay type. We're going to choose personal time. And again, just to let you know, your list is going to look different than this one. Only the pay types that your organization uses will be listed here. And so let's say that Abby needed to take some personal time on Thursday. We'll choose Thursday's date. And for whatever reason, couldn't come in and put in the request. So we're adding it manually. Here's where we can enter the hours and minutes. Once again, there's a place for notes, as well as specifying labor level or org unit information. We're going to dispense with both of those this time. Actually, yeah, we'll dispense with both of those this time and click on Save. And as the page refreshes, as you can see, the personal time has been added for Thursday. And the totals have been updated in the lower right-hand area. So once again, Add Non-Work Shift allows you to add time that is not punched. Now, the final option for adding time is the Mass Transaction Editor. You may not have a really big use for it, but let's give a quick overview of how it works. The Mass Transaction Editor allows you to add time to multiple employees' time cards. Once chosen, and by the way, it's this icon that looks like a series of blocks and a pencil. You could use it to add a single punch to multiple employees' time cards, a work shift, a non-work shift. You can even use it to delete information from multiple employees' time cards. Now let's say that we wanted to add a work shift. We could choose the employees that we wanted to add this work shift to. Let's say that for maybe we lost power in the building. You know, so for a situation like that, maybe add punch might be a little bit better. So let's say we lost power in the building. We had to send a whole bunch of people home early. Well, what we could do is we could say we want it to be a clock out at 4:30 p.m. There's a place for us to enter notes, and then to post it, we would click on Save. I'm not actually going to post it, but again, that's the basic idea behind the Mass Transaction Editor. Again, it allows you to add time or delete time for multiple employees' time cards. So those are the options for adding time. Now, let's talk about time card approval. Time card approval can be done two ways. You can do it for a single employee at a time or for multiple employees at once. To do it for a single employee at a time, you would take a look at the employee's time card. In this area, you'd keep an eye out for stop sign for missing punches. You'd also want to make sure that the total hours look the way that they should. And if that's the case, you would put check marks in the approval check boxes. And now, Jessica Brooks' time card has been fully approved. To move on to the next employee, you would click on their name and you would repeat the steps. So that is how you can do time card approval one employee at a time. To do time card approval for multiple employees at once, you would click on this tab, Time Card Approvals. Working from the top down, you could choose the period that you would like to do time card approval for. You also have the option of choosing a user-defined period. You could filter the employees by payroll policy. You could filter the employees by employee group if you have access to multiple employee groups. To the right, you will see two pie charts. This pie chart represents employee time card approval. So what it's letting me know is that I have one employee who has fully approved their own time card. I have one employee that has partially approved their time card. And I have another 8 employees that have not approved their time cards at all. This pie chart represents manager time card approval. And what it's letting me know is that I, as a manager, have fully approved one employee time card. I have partially approved another employee time card, and another 8 have not been approved at all. Below that, it's going to show me my list of employees. And then there's two columns. This column represents employee time card approval. And it lets me know that Noah Coleman has fully approved his own time card. This column represents manager time card approval, and it lets me know that I, as a manager, have fully approved Jessica Brooks' time card. So, again, you'll want to look in this column, look out for stop signs indicating missing punches. As you can see, we don't have that. So, to get the process started, we could check off employee names one at a time, or we could check off this Check All Employees checkbox. And now it lets me know that from a manager perspective, all of the employee time cards have been fully approved, fully manager approved. But that still leaves me with one employee that has only partially approved their time card, and another 8 that have not approved their time cards at all. What can I do about that? Well, that's where this icon comes into play. It is the message icon. It looks like an envelope with a pencil. And when I click on it, I have the option to message employees. With what kind of message? Why, it's the time card approval reminder. And you'll notice that the recipients of this message are those employees that have not fully approved their time cards yet. And of course, I could customize this message, perhaps adding the due date in the subject line. Or I could enter that due date in the body of the message. I can also edit the date that this message will expire. So, how did I get here? Well, once again, I clicked on the message icon and chose Message Employees. Well, that will conclude the portion of our training dedicated to daily processes and best practices. We will now transition to our final topic, which is reports. Reports can be found under the Reports tab. Your organization's managers will have access to ad hoc or custom reports and standard reports. Standard reports, there are over 30 of them, and they have to do with managing things having to do with employees, exceptions, hours paid, and job tracking. The most commonly run reports are the time card report, the hours summary report, and the exception summary report. For training purposes, we will run the time card report. Once chosen, you will open up a report criteria window. Now, before we get started, I'd like to draw your attention to this preview icon. If you're ever wondering what type of data a report will give you and you're not sure whether or not you'll have enough data or the right kind of data to fully populate it, but you still kind of want to know what it can give you, well, that's where this preview icon comes into play. When you click on it, it will show you sample output so that you can see not only what type of data the report will give you, but how that data will be laid out. And again, that's this preview icon. Working from the top down, it will show you the name of the report, and this is something that you could customize, perhaps by adding the current date. This icon will allow you to filter the employees by things like employee group, or by labor levels or org units. Here, you could determine whether or not employees will show in ascending or descending order. Here, you can choose your output format, and you have options for Adobe PDF, Microsoft Excel, TIFF/PNG. For training purposes, we'll choose PDF. Overtime breakout. The default setting is to show all of the types of overtime that will be on employee time cards. However, as you can see, other options are available that allow you to kind of pick and choose. This is the options section. In this case, it's going to show you a series of options or checkboxes that represent options specific to the time card report. So depending on the type of report that you are running, the options you will see in this section will be different. You know, for training purposes, we're going to have a page break after each employee. In the date range section, you can determine what period you would like to see in this report. And you have options for the current pay period, previous pay period. You can even choose a user-defined period. Email. If you check off this box, it would send an email attachment to your email inbox in your email application. From there, you might decide to use the features of your email application to forward it to others. Or you could send it to all of those additional recipients directly from Stratus Time. And you'll notice here that it mentions that if you're going to send it to multiple recipients, just remember to separate the email addresses with a comma or a semicolon. In the Generate section, it is here that you can determine when the report itself will be generated. I'm sure most of the time you will want your reports to be generated as soon as possible. However, you could say, I'd like this report to be generated at 8 a.m. every week on a Monday, or bi-weekly on a Monday. So you can think of this as the set it and forget it option for reporting. And once you've determined your report criteria, you would click on Run/Schedule. What this will do is generate the report under Generated Reports. When the report finishes generating, you'll have a link like this that you could click on, and it will show you the output of the report. Now, in this case, because it's in the PDF format, just like any other PDF document, you could print these out. Or you could save it as a PDF document. Now, when the report has finished generating, let's say that next week I'd like to run this report the same way that I ran it this week. Well, instead of having to come down under Hours Paid, choose the report, and then try to remember what options I had previously chosen, what I can do is create a custom template under Favorites. To do that, I would click on this gray star icon under Generated Reports, and when I do so, you will notice that now there is a custom template under Favorites. What's the value of this custom template? Well, this custom template, as you'll notice, has the previously determined options have been preserved here. So next week, I can run it the same way by just clicking on Run/Schedule. So this saves you time when it comes to customizing your reports. Now, if this template, this customized favorite template, is one I no longer need, I can remove it as a favorite by clicking on the gold star under Favorites. I'll get the confirmation that's essentially asking, are you sure you want to remove this as a favorite? We'll click on Yes, and that favorite has been removed. Now, as far as the output of the reports, it'll let you know here that reports older than 90 days will be automatically deleted. So what that means is if you do nothing, 90 days after this date, this output of report will be removed or deleted. But you don't have to wait that long. If you want to remove it now, you could put a check mark here, click on this red X. You will get final confirmation essentially letting you know that you're going to delete it right now. Are you sure you want to do that? And you can click on Yes, and it will be removed. Well, that will conclude the formal portion of our training. However, before I take your final questions, I would like to acquaint you with a further resource for getting information about Stratus Time. And that resource is this help link. For you as managers, I'm sure you'll agree, we've covered a lot of information in today's session. Well, there's documents here that talk about things having to do with topics that we've gone over, such as schedules, time cards, time off requests, and reports, and more. There's also a comprehensive manager user guide. Employee level users also have access to documentation having to do with web punching, time off requests, and time card approvals. For those of you with employees that will be web punching, when you click on it, you have a document that's in the PDF format that will show employees how to web punch. Well, at this time, if there are final questions for today's session, now would be the time to ask those questions.
Any questions, guys?
No,
I don't have any.
I don't have any questions.
After you get in here and use it, I might have some, but nothing now.
Okay. Well, if you think of any, feel free to email them to me, Roman, and I'll do my best to get the information and get it back to you.
Sounds great.
Alrighty. And again, just to let everyone know, this session has been recorded, so if you'd like to review the information from today's session, just let Roman know and he can make this recording available to you. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and you folks have a great day.
You too.
Okay.